Okay. Hello and welcome um to time for yourself today. Welcome to learning about weight loss and what feels simple and why is it so hard? Why do we keep saying I know what to do and I just need to do it, but the reality is that there's a barrier. To know and not do is to not know. And that's what we're here to talk about today is the maybe there is something that we don't quite know yet that we need to take a deep dive into in order to get to that next layering of success. So, what I wanted to do was record a little condensed version of our webinar today. So, those of you who are catching the recorded version, that you're not going to have to sit through all of the back and forth, the chatter. So I will bring you any of the nuggets that other individuals ask. If there's things that pop up where I'm like, I wish the whole group would have heard it, you will see that leak out as other posts or texts. So you're today trying to give you this ability to show up to a 30-minute session versus an hour plus and get your content and see if you have any questions for me, if it would be something that you would like to sit down and go through together. So one of the big things that I wanted to talk about today is this. I feel like we have the real barriers to weight loss success, and you're going to get to see me play with this for a minute, or maybe not. Hmm, where did it go? Transition. Okay, here we go. Sorry, keep your attention. But there are root causes to these reasons why we cannot lose weight. All right. There's always an underlying root cause. And one of them that I just want to highlight immediately is pain. If you've listened to any of my webinars in the past, we're going to go quickly over this slide because you've all heard this. But for those of you who haven't heard it, if you have never investigated past injury or the fact that maybe after you work out or after you put time into more movement, you're actually in more pain, you have to recover from it. Like, no wonder it's not tempting to keep showing up to that. So, pain is worth investigating. Untreated emotional eating, feel like a lot of my niche and my clients already are well aware of what emotional eating is. And I have podcasts for you if you feel like you are not. I can direct you there. But I do need to always point this out that emotional eating, if we've never taken the time to pull back the onion layers and figure out where are we emotionally eating and why can we not solve that piece of our puzzle yet, this is one piece that will forever keep pulling us back into this stagnation of plateaus, weight plateaus, as well as not being able to lose weight or even gaining weight. Okay. Emotional eating is a huge piece of this puzzle. It goes back to that question of what am I really hungry for? Am I really hungry for rest? Am I really hungry for sleep and me time? Am I really hungry for like what need is not being met that we're inserting food instead? Am I hungry for a stress-free day? And so instead I'm numbing with food. So emotional eating is a huge piece of this puzzle. Sleep is called the sleep is the Swiss Army knife of health. And I had a podcast guest say that once, and I'm like, you could not be more accurate on that. Sleep affects everything. So if you have terrible sleep habits or you have great sleep habits, but your night sleep, like you have a device that tells you how you slept and you always come up as a poor sleep, if we don't fix this piece, the rest of our pieces are suffering just because this is such a big piece. So, definitely something to consider. Unprotected boundaries. This might feel a little fluffy for some of you that what do you mean unprotected boundaries? Meaning if you forever keep saying too many yeses and you're screeching up to appointments, screeching up to doors, like everything feels like I barely made it to that. I barely did that. This is an area we need to talk about because until this piece settles a little bit, it's really hard to get some of our other movement, nutrition, food pieces all flowing. Okay. So These are just kind of, we've probably all heard of them before, but it's worth saying them again. In the case of you're like, I know sleep is something and I've never addressed it. I know boundaries is something and I never addressed it. Today is your nudge. You need to address it. This could be your missing puzzle piece. It could be your piece that's holding you back. So definitely worth talking about. But what about the other stuff? And what do I mean by the other stuff? Okay. What about the other stuff? Quitting too soon. So, whenever I think about frustrations with weight loss, stagnation, or even weight gain, weight maintenance, all of this, these are all the areas that, like, once we talk about, most people have already looked at their calories in, calories out. Most people have already looked at sleep habits. They've looked at all those other things that I just mentioned. And then there's like this next layering of like, do we have some other check boxes that we need to go through? Do we have some other areas that we need to investigate? And so the quitting too soon is kind of interesting because when we have over dieted in the past or we've lost muscle in the past, when we kick back into weight training and we kick back into healthy habits and more water intake, and sometimes our muscles, because they're building, are holding water. Sometimes, and we'll go into this in more detail, but like there's reason why you could be stagnant and not seeing it out on the outside because there's so much of your insides changing. So this is something we need to consider. We need to consider if your calories have ever been too low in the past, that you've done some really low restrictive diets. Um, it can it can take some recovery time from that. It takes some time to rev up your metabolism again. And insulin resistance is another one I keep having clients ask about. Like, am I fighting some uphill battle that I'm not aware of? And maybe I'm doing everything right, but I still have this like other underlying issue that until we take care of it with either medication or looking at blood sugars, that maybe I'm fighting again that uphill battle. Food sensitivities is something to consider. I have a lot of individuals who really struggle with the gassy thing, the bloating, the feeling almost nauseous after certain foods, speed of eatings, like all of this is definitely worth possibly investigating. Hormones is the next big topic. Okay, so we've got quitting too soon. Do you give up too early because you kick into this? And does it all even matter? Anyways, mentality, too low of calories, insulin resistance, food sensitivities, hormones. And again, I know this isn't a conclusive list, but this is the list that I feel like keep coming to. All right, and before I take a deep dive into each of those individual areas, I like this slide. Warning, warning, warning. Don't let all those things that I just mentioned, as we call them, the other stuff, or the what if that thing's bothering me or stagnating my weight loss, don't let it stop you from doing the basics. So I think this is really important to take a moment and pause together. And I'm going to see if I can increase my screen. It's not going to let me. All right. So hopefully you all can see this, but I have kind of like a pyramid of importance going on here. Because what I see happen with individuals is they watch an episode on menopause or hormones, or they hear somebody talk on food sensitivities, or somebody who's really advocating the how to take care of your insulin resistance. And our brain can start to put up this wall, this barrier that goes, because you might have this, you can't see success. Like you won't see success until you get this one item, this one area taken care of. So we have to be a little bit careful with that because it's not that these other areas don't affect us. They do. But are we making it this big thing where ultimately we need to see this as a pyramid and remember the basics, remember that bottom rung? And so the bottom rung to me is this, the are we doing just the eating the color of the rainbow, excuse me, eating the fruits and vegetables? Are we having appropriate protein intake in our day? Do we eat fiber? Do we have good just general movement going on in the day? If you were to do a fitness tracker, are you able to see like, no, I'm making some efforts at moving? Have we done the basics of investigating calories in, calories out? So those are the basics that don't ever forget about them. Don't ever forget that like we should pull those intentions back in first and foremost. And I didn't put water intake on here, but water intake. Am I just drinking good amounts of water in the day and not doing too much of the other stuff like calorie beverages, alcohol beverages? Those to me, our insides will change if we focus on the basics. Like your lab work will change if you focus on the basics. You might not see extremes amount of weight loss. And I think that's where this like, people we have frustrations, right? There are these underlying like I am working so hard and I am not seeing results. And so when that type of thinking comes in, then we need to ladder up. We need to go up to that next rung on the ladder. And that's where I started saying, like, let's think more specifics now, right? So if we even just think food and fitness in this, all right, initially we were worrying about, am I just getting a good amount of movement? And well, now we're going to start asking the questions because we're talking specifics of, am I am I getting resistance training in? Am I starting to really work on my muscle training that's going to up your metabolism? Am I doing the PT and the stretching to make sure that my body feels really good on a day-to-day basis so that I can keep this movement going? Am I eating a variety of foods at specific times throughout the day? Am I like backloading? So at the end of the day, am I seeing all my calories? Even if my calories are only 1,200 in the day, are they all coming in from the hours of 4 o'clock on? Something to consider, right? Have you ever macronutrient counted? And when I say that, I don't mean a diet. I just mean, do you have awareness of where your carbohydrate grams look like in a day, or your protein grams, or your fat grams, your fiber grams? All of that is now we're talking specifics, right? Because that first rung was making us healthy, but we weren't seeing weight loss results. So, hey, I want to see weight loss results. Let's bump up. Let's start to look at the specifics. And once you see the specifics, and let's say you're like, I've been doing this for years, Lindsey, it's not working. I'm doing everything to the T. Cool. That's amazing. First of all, congratulations. And you're the person who keeps getting to bump up the ladder. Like it's a privilege. You get to keep, no, I'm sorry. It's frustrating. And I'm sorry that you have to keep nitpicking. But now you're the person who has to go up the next rung and we got to nitpick a little bit more. We have to see what that next opportunity, puzzle piece, area of availability looks like for us, where we can finally start to see changes again on our insides, on our outsides, energy, brain work, but also the scale at some point, right? Like at some point, we need to see some results. So that's why we're going to talk hormone, insulin resistance, and food sensitivities today. Because if we have an area that's been blocking and really a barrier for us at this moment, we need to address it. We need to pull back onion layers and research it and look at it. And then going up even one more rung on the ladder, if you're like, I'm doing hormones, I've worn glucose monitor, which we'll talk about all of this. Like I've investigated, I've done the food sensitivity test. Now, there's still another rung where we can look at environment and see if things are affecting you. If like even switching laundry detergent from all the smell goods to just simple and fragrance free can really help some individuals get a little less inflamed if their body's not tolerating that well. Organic foods versus non-organic. This is where some people jump right to, should I do organic or should I not? And it's like, oh, there are all of these layers way before we talk toxicities in the home or organics or so many areas, or even when people with their workouts are like nitpicking their workout to the point of like, I hear that working out at this specific hour with this specific amount of nutrient in our body is the best way to do this. Sure, we can always keep digging into the science, but if we're not doing the basics, we have to be really careful with that, right? Like, let's start with the basics and then work our way up. So, hopefully, that makes sense. And that kind of helps everybody remember the importance of this bottom rung of the pyramid of eat your fruits and vegetables today. Like, that's a great start. Okay. So, just to again emphasize the quitting too soon piece, uh, was everything going well when you first started and you like on your health journey and you were getting your water and you were doing your walks, you were doing your resistance training, you were meal planning and prepping. So everything was going really well. And then at some point you stepped on the scale and it didn't show you results. So you threw in the towel. Is that a little bit how your journey could have looked? Did you go from minimal exercise, maybe not even doing any exercise, to all of a sudden you're in at the gym 4 to 5 times a week? And could maintenance be a win? Which I want to talk about this for a second. But why I bring up that you did you go from minimum exercise to an absorbent amount of exercise is because insides are changing a lot. And I started to say that at the beginning of this webinar, but like when your insides are changing that much, you're not seeing it on the scale because your muscle mass weighs the same amount. People are always like, muscle weighs more than fat. It doesn't weigh more. A pound is a pound is a pound, right? But a pound of muscle can be very thin, and a pound of fat takes up more space in your body. So you can be stepping on the scale and the numbers look the same, but you're like, why are my pants fitting different? That's why. So that can be frustrating. And we have to kind of like look past that and say, like, eventually it'll show up on the scale, but it might take months to even years, depending on how much damage was done, like in prior years. We're coming out of all of that diet mentality of possibly losing muscle mass through diets and we're reshaping your body. And that just takes time. And then the idea that could maintenance be a win is really important to talk about because if maintenance looks different than what it used to look like. So, for instance, if you're going through a really stressful time in your job, and normally that would have meant weight gain, but this season of life, you've implemented enough good things going on that now you're in a really stressful season. And yeah, maybe you're not able to lose more weight at the moment, but you're able to maintain. That's a win. And a lot of us aren't acknowledging those wins because we're not looking backwards going, am I doing better than I was doing before? And if the answer is yes, then you're winning, then you're going in the right direction. And we still, with that win, have time to keep working on scale numbers going down and actual weight loss. But we've got to acknowledge the wins that are happening so that we know that we're on the right track. Okay. It doesn't like that. Okay. Too low of calories. Have you lived on 1,200 calories or less for an extended period of time, possibly even lower, and minimal exercise? And the reason why I need you to think through that is obviously muscle mass. If we're equally losing muscle mass with fat mass, our metabolism is slowing down. And then when we come off this extremely low diet, then when we eat even low amounts of calories, we could be gaining weight back or even just maintaining because we've lost some metabolism. And that's where we got to really pull the muscle training back in. Have you ever been able to see a breakdown of your weight loss in the past? So, like fat loss compared to muscle mass. This is interesting. And if you look, even Google around your area, a lot of fitness clubs offer scales that provide these readings for a minimal cost. Or some people decide instead of paying a cost that way, I'm going to go ahead and invest in a scale at home, spend a little more on my scale, but instead of being able to just see a scale number, I want to be able to see if I'm gaining muscle and if I'm losing fat. That breakdown's super important when we talk metabolism. And then oftentimes when individuals sit at extremely low calories, there's not appropriate amount of time to slowly reintroduce calories. So that transitional phase gets skipped, meaning you went from really low calories to all of a sudden normal calories and your metabolism didn't have a chance to rev back up. And the problem with that is then it's easier to gain weight because we skip the transition phase. The transition phase needs to be really slow and controlled. I do want to talk about insulin resistance today. So, as we start to talk insulin resistance, as we talk food sensitivity, as we talk hormones, my point of coming on and talking to you is not to give you answers today. And I'm sorry if you're like, but before you shut the video down, what I'm giving you today is next steps. It's the next step of if I think this could be something I need to investigate. A lot of people have this barrier of I don't even know how to investigate it. I don't know what to do or how to gather my information. And that's what I'm doing for you today. I'm giving you this something to think about and then the next step to keep investigating and seeing if this is something that's part of your journey. So for something like insulin resistance, um, when you get labs drawn, whether that's through your gynecologist or whether that's through a primary care, you need to ask for a fasting insulin and a hemoglobin A1C. That hemoglobin A1C gives you the last 3 months worth of data of how your blood sugars have been sitting. Like, are you pretty well controlled? Are we having any trouble with blood sugar fluctuations? And so knowing that number and then also the fasting insulin number will give your provider the little, okay, we're dealing with something. So if you've never had these numbers, this would be like a baseline for your providers. But if you've already had one, then the next time we get this drawn, we can see how are we trending? Are we trending up? Are those numbers going in a direction that we're like, uh-oh, it is creeping up? Are we stagnant? Are we staying the same, which is a good thing in this case? Or have all of our efforts towards food and water and fitness actually trended those numbers down? So something to look at, okay? If you feel that you are up against something like insulin resistance, now what, right? So we have options. One, I would absolutely talk to your primary or your gynecologist, whoever manages most of this care for you. I would be running these numbers by them and just investigating together, saying, like, what's your next step? What would you recommend? All right. And this is where medication might possibly come in if you're really trending up. They might want to talk about, I always talk about the equation to success. Like, we have the food piece plus the fitness piece. And sometimes we need plus the meds piece to equal weight loss success. Not always, but like if you're a person who maybe does need that, and sometimes even just short term, because we're doing an uphill battle somewhere, if we're missing that piece, that could be that like, why can't I lose a pound? Maybe this would be why can't I lose a pound type of thinking. So definitely talk to your physician. And then the other piece, I like talking like we can't always take control of our situation, but we can take charge of our situation. And there's a difference in there. Taking charge could look like you could ask your provider, could you prescribe me a continuous blood glucose monitor? They're the things that go permanently for like that month or two on the back, or not permanently, but they do stay on for a couple weeks at a time on the back of your arm. And it gives you continuous blood glucose readings. And if your insurance doesn't cover it, under the code of most times it's under the code of insulin resistance, or if you have prediabetes, diabetes, then you're even more likely to get that covered by insurance. But if you don't have that, now they're starting to give them over the counter. You can just pay for them. They're a little more. They're like $80 to $90 a month versus I was able to get mine for $19 a month. So that kind of fluctuates depending on if you can get it prescribed or not. But I think of everything as research. And this is a piece of the research. When we can see our insides, it's a big deal. It is the piece that we go, oh, when I take a walk after a meal, my blood sugars came down so much faster than when I ate a meal and I went to bed. Then they maybe stayed up there for a while, or I binged. And this is what a binge looks like with my blood sugars. I see my insides, and I know, I really do. I know that that can sound super scary to some of you, but the reality is that once we see it and we know it, we can kind of like breathe it out and be like, okay, it's scary. I saw it. I don't like how that works. But like now we're seeing real-time results versus just like thinking, is this scary? Sometimes our thoughts are way more scary than just seeing our numbers, right? Okay, so insulin resistance is something to possibly investigate. Food sensitivities, I'm not going to stay on this too long, but I do want to kind of read off the symptoms. Symptoms of food intolerance can obviously vary widely. They can include stomach and bowel irritation, headaches, hives, itching, and even vague feelings of being unwell, such as like flu-like aches and pains, unusual tiredness, concentration problems, which isn't this interesting. I think a lot of this starts to also tie into the perimenopausal, menopausal things as well. So this is where I know it can start to get confusing, and we don't dive into looking into all of these all at once. We kind of like pick them apart. I always say to pull the onion layers down, but this is one onion layer. You'd pull it down and start to investigate possibly. The bloating would probably be the biggest thing that I hear people come in and be like, I can eat something and literally look pregnant. And the other piece would be gas. That man, I notice when I eat dairy, my family cannot be around me, or I drink this type of beer, and whoa, that like I literally can't handle that. I'm so gassy. So something I keep liking to give you something that's like almost free and then something that you can look further into, but you can do your own elimination diet, meaning take out a food group for a couple weeks, 2 to 4 is recommended, and then see if your symptoms all settle down, and then you reintroduce the food. And when you reintroduce the food, if those symptoms like immediately come back and come back more with a vengeance, then we're talking we have a sensitivity towards something. And I would grab again a professional to help walk you through how to assess and analyze this. But you can start some investigation on your own and journal with it so you can bring that information into your dietitian or into a health professional. Okay. There are also the food sensitivity tests where it's a blood draw and you can get printed out paperwork that actually shows you if you're sensitive to something. And I will tell you, you will get mixed reviews from the medical community on people who really believe in that and people who don't. And I'll tell you a little bit of how I view it. I think it gives us some information. We shouldn't follow it off the edge of the cliff. But if we get something like that back and it is triggering for dairy, or if it's triggering for gluten, it's an idea of something that we should investigate, right? Versus the elimination diet, you could spend weeks and months pulling out foods and reintroducing them, where the food sensitivity testing could give you an idea of like maybe you should start here. If you're going to eliminate something, maybe if dairy is getting super highlighted, that would be your first area to investigate. So we're just trying to simplify that a bit. Hormones I want to talk about because we have some cool stuff happening in the hormone, in the perimenopausal, in the menopause world right now. And I feel like it really started to get triggered with Oprah Winfrey and taking this on as being an advocate for our menopause community. And so the first place I want to send you with hormone talk is listen to an Oprah. She just did, it's on Hulu and on Disney Plus, Menopause Revolution. Like, watch something enjoyable and just see if anything's triggering you to be like, that really sounds like me. That's something I should maybe investigate. Dax Shepard with Kristen Bell's husband, who I also really like, brought on Mary Claire Haver, she's like huge in the menopause community. And that's like a 2 hour podcast episode, but enjoyable to kick back and listen to. So when you start thinking through some of your celebrities who are starting to talk about this, who are bringing on true professionals in the area, I think it's worth understanding it and then getting to question like, am I somebody that's having these symptoms? When I hear somebody talk about it, does it make me feel like, oh, my shoulders relax because somebody gets me? So that's really like where I'm going to start with hormones for today's talk, because I think a lot of us just haven't gotten the right professional in our ear to start to really walk us through this. So, especially if you're somebody, and I put the symptoms down on our paperwork today, but who has hot flashes, night sweats, trouble sleeping, mood changes, that brain fog, like trouble remembering your words or remembering in general, irregular periods, vaginal dryness, like any of this for today, go gather your research and your information. And I was going to tell you when we're done, I have a worksheet for you with clickable links to everything that we're talking about today. So you can go listen to the podcast on food sensitivity or go listen to your podcast on the hormones. I will have it all laid out and clickable. If you want to come over to my Instagram page, it's at House Lifestyles, and just send me a little message privately. They're called DMs for any of you who don't know that, but you can DM me and just say, I'd really like the packet from today's webinar. And I will send that over to you just so that everything remains private. But that way everything's in your hand and again, clickable. So for this purpose, I'm going to stop at the other stuff that we just talked about and let you know that if you are like, this is also overwhelming to me, it's overwhelming because it is overwhelming. And why I'm pulling you on today to one, give you the initial resources to go start investigating on your own, but also to know that you have teammates and resources that you can pull in. And I can be one of those. You can jump on a free call with me and we can take your individual breakdown of like what your concerns are, what your worries are, send you out with a plan type of thinking. And then so you'd know that if you want to keep researching that, I have options for you. I do. I've got a course that I have accountability sources for you. I have resiliency training. I have these week by week sessions where you just hit play, and that's what this was going to be about. You have 40 lessons and you just hit play and it comes with a worksheet. And then you and I meet once a week. So the accountability is super strong. I always call this powerhouse plan like the deep dive because you get me on Zoom sessions, you get me recorded, you get the worksheets. Like I always say, you'll be sick of me by the end of this, but I love it because there's not a week that goes by where I don't know exactly where you are and you don't know exactly that like the accountability source is sitting there waiting for you at the end of every week, right? And we'd pick our day and our time that works for us to meet. So I wanted to show you what that would start to look like. And like I said, just the book a call. It's super easy. It'll be on the worksheet that I'm going to give you. If you request that, you can go over to my website, healthaccountabilitycoach.com, or since this is going to be the recorded version of the call, it will be in the comments below as well. And I just wanted to leave you with this, if I can find the brain work of all of this. As you listen to things that feel overwhelming, because I know this would feel overwhelming to me in the beginning of all of this, it did feel overwhelming, just trying to learn why are my clients stagnant? Why are we having so many individuals go, I'm doing all the work and I'm not moving? I'm not seeing the weight loss results. That made me go on this journey of, hey, I'm investigating it all. I like now feel like I have that checklist of insulin resistant, food sensitivity, hormones, like with sleep, with pain, with all the other things, because once we go through and check those boxes one by one, we can start to really understand where's our area, where's the hang up, right? And sometimes it's the brain piece. Sometimes it has nothing to do with our actual body and it's our brain, and we have a lot of limiting beliefs to get around that are really holding us back. So when I say the brain work, instead of asking, will this work for me? I need you to ask, how will this work for me? This is like a growth versus fixed mindset. When we ask questions of how, then your brain starts to research and find the answers. And if we ask something more like, will this even work for me? Then you get a quick yes or no from your brain. And that's not really that helpful because when we ask how, then you could go, well, maybe if I had a coach in my corner, if I had accountability in my corner, I would have more motivation during the week because I know I'm going to show up to them. Like you start creating what would actually benefit your journey versus the like, I've done things before, it's not going to work. Right. So, first things first, reach out to me and we can do a free one-on-one call together. That would be like what I would say would be the first step. Request your worksheet and I can give you all the links to different podcasts to start plugging in your ears. And then there's options. There's even I have membership options where you can exist in groups and be a part of that. Actually, I think I even threw them on here. Yes. So in our membership, it's an online community where you will have your resources. You'll have professionals. I bring on other professionals to even do Zoom meetings with us. We're with each other all month, every month. And it's a safe place because you're with other like-minded individuals. We're all working on the same thing. So we'll do things like accountability week where people will be like, maybe one of my goals is that we leave our phone downstairs and lights off. Maybe you work on your bedtime. Maybe you work on your family flow in a group together. Maybe you work on meal planning. Maybe you work on your water intake. And the reason why I want to say all of this is because when this is all the difference of thriving through our months versus surviving through our months. So when I think about somebody taking a deep dive with me and needing that week to week and needing the one-on-one, it's probably because we're maybe a little more stuck in our journey, or maybe we're at more of a beginning point of our journey where the membership piece of this feels a little bit more like things are flowing, but I need constant check-ins and accountabilities and constant motivation to keep the ball rolling in the positive direction. So again, options, options, options. But my challenge to you today is to take action, because how easy is it to show up to these things and walk away and not do anything with it? So maybe just even getting the one-on-one call can be your actionable step today. And then we'll see where your journey goes. All right. Um, that's it. That's it for today. I'm going to stop sharing and I will see you hopefully on the one-on-one call. You see my cat in the background joined me today because I got displaced out of my office because my husband was home. Okay. We'll talk.